All right. So, um, it seems as though, just from hearing from everyone over the last week, including me, it was a really tough week last week. I don't know about you. How is it for you?
I think I actually had a pretty good week.
Yay! I was like, somebody tell me this today. Oh, good. That's good because you've been having some challenging weeks lately. So it's good
Yeah.
to hear that you're on the upswing at the moment. Good. Uh, For me, my brother and sister-in-law finalized their divorce on Wednesday last week, which should have come as a relief, but emotionally, it just really ripped me up for a few days. It was kind of crazy, and it was really, really fast. So, um, so in my personal life, I thankfully was done coaching on Wednesday night when I heard the news. So I didn't have to do coaching calls, which is really hard when you're feeling emotionally upset, right? So I took that week off this last summer, because there's nothing to give at that moment, right? So I was able to rejuvenate this weekend. But what was interesting is I had some call forms and stuff come in, like, how do you work through challenging times when you're trying to tell yourself that you're positive and you're calm and you're peaceful, but you're not feeling those things. And I'm like, well, that's interesting that you're saying that because I'm actually working through those things. And so I was really able to hone in and kind of pay attention to how do we work through that type of stuff because life isn't always hunky dory, as we all know. And just because we're telling ourselves that we're calm, we're peaceful, we're happy, we're grateful, abundant, doesn't mean that we're not going to experience negative emotions. So in dealing with the negative emotions, we have to allow ourselves to go there and be okay with it. And just because we feel negative doesn't mean that we are believing bad things about who we are, right? So you can feel pain and anger and sadness and disgust and all those negative things without ripping yourself up, without saying that you're a terrible person because you feel those things. Does that make sense? So, being able to take the time and give yourself that ability to process. Um, and we've talked about this before. We talked about this with you, even Randy, when you were struggling with some stuff emotionally. It's take more off your plate, right? Be okay with not accomplishing everything you're used to accomplishing when you're struggling through something heavy. And also give yourself grace if you're a little more edgy and snappy with the kids, right? Or if you lose it with the kids. Maybe you yell at the kids or say something you didn't want to. That's the recovery piece we get to use. That's the tool we get to pull out of our tool box to work through that and remind the kids that it's not you, it's the circumstances that I'm dealing with. So it puts me on edge. And from what I've witnessed in my own life, kids are really receptive to understanding you're taking it off of them. So, bless you. My kids know I'm not angry at them. I don't not love them. I don't not accept them. It's not them who's the challenge. It's things inside that are the challenge. Again, bless you. So I got to say something because you just sneezed. I don't know if you know this, but when you sneeze, you reset your entire nervous system just like when you're breathing. So it's actually sneezing. Yes, you kill brain cells, but you're renewing at the same time. It's really cool. So just a little side note there. It's good to sneeze.
That's cool. I heard
Yeah.
your like heart stops, right? I
Oh, I
thought I
don't know. I've never heard that, but
I thought I heard like your heart stops when you sneeze
that would
for
make
just a
sense.
second.
Yeah.
But
It's just a
yeah, that's
resetting.
interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
I
All these
wish I sneezed more then.
My daughter, classic, every time she sneezes, it's 3 times. And I've heard people, there's like
Yeah.
We know someone who sneezes 7 times every time they sneeze. That is so crazy. Apparently, they just need more of a reset.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, so being able to give yourself grace in that moment and just being open, like where let's try that again. I'm talking about communicating and I got tongue tied. You can't over communicate to your children. That's something that I've tried to help you all understand. And sorry, hold on. Something is, that was really random, but I just saw a piece of chocolate on our couch. I'm like, what is that doing? It's gonna melt. Um, so you can't over communicate to your kids. And I try to help you all understand and remember that it's good to communicate how you're feeling. You don't have to tell them all the reasons why you're feeling and go into detail about it, but it's okay to tell them, Mommy's sad right now. Last week, when Wednesday night, when my girls got home, Mike was out of town. My girls got home, and I was sitting on the couch with the dogs on me, and I had been just bawling. And they got home, and they're just kind of like, Mom? And I just told them, I was like, girls, your aunt and uncle are now officially divorced. And they were like, why does that bother you? Like, you've known this was happening. And I just kind of explained, it's just an emotional event. And they all just gathered, gave me a hug, and gave me grace that evening, right? They knew that I was under duress. And so, had they come in the past, honestly, there's times that I would have been like, oh, they're home. I got to like clean up and just act like everything's okay. And I was like, why would I do that? They need to experience seeing mom upset. It's healthy for them to know that it's okay to process your negative emotions. And I have had moms who I've worked with who are like, no, like, I didn't know you were supposed to do that. Like, that was okay. And so I'm telling you, if you've had that feeling or aren't sure, it's okay to let your kids see you process negative emotions, because we want them to know how to do that, right? Because if we resist it, then we cause friction. Uh, Interestingly, I heard this at one point from someone who's studying different things with emotions, and they said, I can't remember what they are. That's why I'm like stuttering, like, what is their credentials? I don't remember. But she said that our anger, a lot of times we'll bypass anger into sadness. And I thought that was interesting. Or the reverse, we'll bypass sadness and go straight to anger. So depending on where we trend, we'll try to avoid one negative emotion and use another to cover it or to try to push it away. So it's just kind of interesting to see that. So when you feel sadness, right? Anyways, so let me get back on track. I want to, all of this was like culminating. I'm thinking about this over the last week and what was sent in and what we've all been kind of processing. And this is the verses that uh, were in my journal, my Write the Word journal this morning to write out. And I just absolutely adore how God speaks to us always. I don't ever prepare for these calls. I just see what he wants to tell me that morning and share it with you. So it's faith and endurance. It's James 1, 2, verses 2 through 18 is what I'm going to read. Again, sorry, this is the New Living Translation. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. But when you ask him, be sure your faith in But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver for a person with divided loyalty. Sorry, let me try that again. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. Believers who are poor have something to boast about, for God has honored them. And those who are rich should boast that God has humbled them. They will fade away like a flower in the field. The hot sun rises and the grass withers. The little flower droops and falls, and its beauty fades away. In the same way, the rich will fade away with all their achievements. God blessed those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. And remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful action, and then sin is allowed to grow. It gives birth to death. Do not be misled, dear brothers and sisters. Whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in the heavens. He never changes or casts a shifting shadow. He chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word, and we, out of all creation, became his prized possessions. So much awesome here. So much here that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So I'm going to try to pull out some of the things that highlighted in my head. So when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it a great opportunity for great joy. What do I tell you guys when you're struggling? Right? It's not hard, it's a challenge, right? Because the challenge is something that makes us stronger, it helps us overcome it, and we can be grateful that we have those things. In fact, one of the things that I pray to when I pray to the Lord is, thank you, Lord, for the blessings and the challenges. Not that I'm asking him for more challenges, but I'm thanking him that the challenges are there, because without those things, I wouldn't know how to be stronger. I wouldn't be wiser. If I didn't struggle with what I struggled with last week, I wouldn't be able to help the questions that came into me, right? So crazy. It was just one of those moments. I was like, whoa. Friday night, I got a coaching call form, and I'm reading this, and I'm like, really? This is exactly what I'm struggling with and working through at this moment. I will be so prepared next week. It was just so cool. And so I thank God for those challenges. Even with the kids, when the kids are challenging and it's frustrating and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm thankful for those things, because I get to use that experience to speak life into somebody else, right? So we get to use our challenges to our advantage. So that to me is what it's saying. Um, or troubles are an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow, right? You all have seen, as you've walked through this program, your awareness has become very strong in what's going on for you. Even if you walk through a moment of destruction, you're aware of it. It's probably really hard. It's probably challenging to walk through something and not hear yourself speaking or hear God speaking to you going, you shouldn't do this, or you should stop, but you make that decision. You consciously choose, no, I'm just going to go through with it anyways, or yeah, I should stop, right? We wrestle with that inside. I still, to this day, this morning, I was getting a little mouthy with my 9-year-old, and I heard inside, I was like, stop, just stop. And I said one more thing, and then I was like, just stop. And so then I was finally like, okay, stop. And later we cuddled. But it was just like, I too, right? It's that awareness that we have, and thankfully the Holy Spirit is helping us. He's speaking to us. Let's see. So when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. That is, to me, when we are fully experiencing and understanding the gratitude of who we want to be and who we are. Those I am statements. When we are fully experiencing and believing that we are grateful, that we are abundant, that we are calm, peace, love, when we have that moment of complete gratitude, we are full, perfect, and complete and needing nothing, right? There's no lack there. There's nothing we're needing for. We are full of gratitude. And so you can't, that's why one of the things that I encourage you to do when you're feeling not so great, try to start finding the things you're grateful for, because we can't feel lack and grateful at the same time, right? So, uh, again, that's different than feeling the emotions that you need to process. But after you've been processing, if you start going down the negative thing, becoming the victim, or saying life isn't good, or getting frustrated, or saying you could be better, you're not enough, then you're in lack at that point. So we don't need to go there. We need to process those emotions and go to gratefulness. Thank you for this challenge that I get to work through, right? If you need wisdom, ask our generous God and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. Never. There's never a problem for asking God to help you be wise in all circumstances that you're working through, right? There's nothing wrong with you for asking, and he is the source of wisdom. Like, where else do we get it? It's from him. So it's awesome to be grateful and ask him, lead me in this, give me wisdom. I literally love to pray the words, Lord, please give me wisdom. And I think of David, and how powerful his story is for when he's asking for wisdom and guidance. Let's see. Okay, so when you ask, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Right here, I want you to think of the I am statements. When you ask him, be sure your faith is in God alone. Such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. So if you're wavering, their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. Remember, we talked about living of the world and how I've asked you to try to separate the idea that that's just a material idea. Living of the world is living in negative beliefs, right? That you're not good enough, that you should feel guilty because you're not a good enough mom, or you're not a good enough wife, or your life isn't good. Like all those negative things that we're always working through, right? I am angry, all of those things. When you are working on your I am statements and changing your beliefs and changing your identity, what you identify with, you have to have 100% faith that that's what God wants for you too, right? Living with God, living in faith, belief that God wants you to be perfected and believe the good things about you and this life and in this world, the positive, that right here is what, to me, what that means. When you ask him, be sure your faith is in God alone. Not that you're worshiping some idol or something, but we can make those negative emotions idols, right? Because we choose to believe the negative things. And when we're believing the negative things, we can't help anyone else. We can't serve God. We can't live for his glory because we're so self-focused in that time. We're focused on how terrible we feel. And when we feel that way, we can't help other people, right? So to me, that's such a clear, the way that it's said here, so helpful in thinking about the I am statements and living of the world in the negative. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. So where are we when we're believing the negative? We're unstable, right? We're wavering. We're second guessing. Can we really be good enough? And we're more apt to believe the negative than the positive because it's easier to be negative than it is to be positive in this world, right? Because the world as a whole feels more negative. So when we try to rise above, they all try to take us down, right? So I hope that that makes sense. My That's helpful. I'm going to jump down to verse 12. God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterward they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. And remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong. Isn't that an interesting concept? I, for years, was like, oh, God's giving me this challenge because he wants me to be better, right? Or there's ice cream in the fridge and he's telling me I know it's there and I don't want to eat it, but like if I endure this, like God's just tempting me. You know what I mean? Like I totally have believed that in my past before. Um, or giving me the kids in the beginning. Why would you give me these kids? Like I can't take care of them. So blaming him, but he's not blame he doesn't give us these things to create negativity in our life. That's us creating the negativity, right? Um, he doesn't give us the challenges. He helps us work through the challenges, right? So temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. We're tempted to scream at the children because it'll feel better than having to sit and try to process that and figure out what's wrong, right? It takes less time to scream at the child than to all take a time out and work through it, right? These desires give birth to sinful actions, and then when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. Do you remember the spiral, the negative spiral? What was at the very end of that spiral? It was death, right? All that negativity, because there's a challenge and we're tempted to, by our own choice, we're tempted to go down that negative spiral. And so when we're living in the positive spiral and we're telling ourselves and we're choosing to identify with new beliefs, positive beliefs, we don't get down to that lower spiral at the very bottom, right? We come down, but we're able to come back up because we're stronger. Like it's saying up here, it um, endurance, we get endurance, a chance to grow. Don't be misled, my dear brothers and sisters. Whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in heavens. I've referred to this verse before. All good in your life is from God. Believing the truth about you, a positive truth about yourself, and acting that out is all from God. He gives us that ability. He helps us. He lets us create that in our own life. And he he never changes, casts a shifting shadow. It's just all of this. He does not create that challenge in our life. We create the challenge, right? We can thank him for the endurance and ability to work through the challenge. But anything that we've done in sin or have tempted to do is not from him. He chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word. True word. Again, there we go. There's words. True word. If words weren't important, why would it be so prominent in the Bible, right? And we out of all creation became his prized possession. You are, and all of creation, we became his prized possession. If that doesn't say that you are worthy enough and good enough to believe the truth about yourself that's positive, what else does, right? So much truth. Well, it's God's word, of course it's truth, but it's just so good. Hopefully this was encouraging. I know um, when you've had a difficult moment, difficult few days, whatever it is, we get to look at that and grow. And I'm hoping that all that I just worked through or just talked about right now was really encouraging in that mindset shift of hard to challenging. Challenging helps us grow. Growing gives us endurance. We become aware of the situations, the circumstances, and we're able to continue as we grow, get through these circumstances in a more positive way. So when you're feeling like you've reverted, I don't know that I haven't worked with a client yet who's been like, I don't understand, I'm reverting. Why am I going back? Why am I acting this way? Why am I worse than I was before I started right now? Like, all of you have experienced that. I've experienced that. But the point is, as you continue to grow and work through those, that's why I tell you every moment now from here on forward that you experience a challenge with your kids is an opportunity of growth. It's something you're going to learn from. It is not something that says you're a bad person or you're not growing. And when you look at those circumstances that you're growing from them, you have a different mindset about walking through the next challenge with your kids, and you're in a growth mindset, you're in a productive mindset, and that all creates positive energy basically in your life, right? So that's my thoughts for the morning. Hopefully that helps some of you, or I know this is being recorded, so it's just me and Randy right now, but for those of you who have written me in the last few days and have really struggled, I'm hoping that's encouraging. How are you doing, Randy?
I'm good. It's interesting that that's what you read this morning, because the daily readings for us this morning, the first reading was from Wisdom, and it talks a lot about the things that you talked about. I'm trying to see what line stood out to me. It just says that, like, those he is found, God is found by those who test him not, and he manifests himself to those who do not disbelieve him. So, you have to have faith. And I thought it was interesting that it said, because into a soul that plots evil, wisdom enters not, nor dwells she in a body under debt of sin. So basically, like, wisdom will not enter, someone who's plotting evil or committing sin after sin. Like, wisdom can't grow, in a person like that. And for wisdom is a kindly spirit. So yeah, it kind of tied in nicely with yours. Yours was more on enduring the challenges and stuff, but it related to me with what I read earlier in Wisdom. And so that was cool.
I love that. It's such a great point too, that kind of, there's something else in there that I said, it's just negative and positive can't be in the same place, right? They repel each other. And positive attracts positive and negative attracts negative. I don't know if that works in like the scientific whatever, but you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to think of a magnet right now. For some reason, my brain's going there. I'm like, don't try to be smart right now with science, Natalie. You don't math right now. Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, that's awesome. And it's true, when you're plotting evil, when you're thinking negative things or wanting to get revenge towards somebody, uh, you don't like, why would he give you the wisdom to help with something like that, right? He can't do that. He can't give you the wisdom for that. And he can't, because he can't do negative things. Isn't that so crazy and awesome to know that God can't say he's not enough? Can you imagine if he had that ability? He doesn't even have the ability to think negative. But that's such a good point, though, because you think about that in respect to he has the ability to feel negative emotions, right? He feels anger, he feels sadness, he feels disgust, and yet he doesn't believe negative or create negative. That's like, I'm just processing that in my own mind. Like,
Yeah,
that's
me
just
too.
like so cool, right? And it's what we've been I was talking about. I said something on my Insta stories last week too about this. Same thing though, like you can, feeling the negative emotions and processing the negative emotions is not you being negative about yourself. And that's really important to decipher the difference. Because I remember when I started thinking positive and changing my mindset and changing my beliefs, I was so afraid to let any negative thought come into my head because I was afraid I would attract more negative if I did, or I wasn't believing good things about myself or positive truths or anything because I was thinking or feeling negative, right? But it only goes there if you're telling yourself you are a terrible person instead of I'm feeling terrible right now. The feelings are hurting. And sometimes here's the thing, like when you're processing negative emotions, sometimes you just don't even have any ability to think about anything. You just zone out and you check out. And it's there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? What's wrong is if we start using things to check out and not process ever. So if you're struggling with, I mean, there's many times since Wednesday night through Sunday morning or Saturday night was really fun. It was, by the way, just got to say this, happiness, fun, doing things that feel good, that are healthy is healing. Happiness is healing. So, example, Saturday morning, Mike brought me coffee in bed. That was super sweet. He left to go check on the girls. We were getting ready because we had this dance. We had to practice the dance Saturday morning, then we got dressed up and went to the dance Saturday night, right? He comes back in and I'm sitting on the bed and I'm just bawling again. All these tears falling into my coffee. And he's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No, but it's okay. I need to do this." Right? And I was struggling that morning at the dance practice. I even had to walk out and just go sit down. I was crying again. I'm like, "Oh, when is this gonna stop?" Like, but I like didn't want to stop crying because I'm like, I have to process that. Saturday night, by Saturday night, I was feeling better because I'd let myself process those things, right? And then I just let myself have fun and enjoy the time there, enjoy the time with Mike, watching the girls, like dancing. It was super fun. And it was so healing. And I slept really well that night. And I woke up Sunday morning feeling positive, right? So happiness is healing. And where was I going with that before I started the happiness is healing comment? I don't remember. Anyways, yeah. Okay. Awkward coaching moment.
It usually comes back to you.
I know. So healing, and it's okay to let it go. And oh, I know, zoning out. There we go. Yeah, you're right. It always does come back. So, but like Friday night, I was zoning out, like scrolling Instagram, like just scrolling. And a point that I want to make here is if I were to continue to scroll and start letting things drop, didn't get groceries yesterday, canceled this call this morning and just sat on Instagram, let's say I was still feeling negative, right? Just using something like that and a substance of some kind to check out and not get back into reality, that's where it becomes an addiction and a challenge and a problem, right? But taking time during something heavy and checking out, watching a movie, binge watching something on Netflix, whatever, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In the respect that, remember, if you, maybe you remember, I've said that when you're trying to figure something out, which is really what we're doing when we're feeling negative, we're trying to figure out how do we feel better? How do we make the situation better? How do we survive this moment that's feeling hard, right? We have to uh, allow our subconscious to chew. And sometimes that means we need to check out. We need to just do something different. I'm not saying we should go on a drinking binge or anything like that. We need to be healthy, right? But it's okay if you do have an extra glass of wine, or if you're okay with that. If you need to go into town and take some money out of your fun money account and splurge on something, whatever that is, right? Zoning out, like those things are okay because it's giving yourself a break and it's giving your subconscious time to chew. So when we just sit there and wallow in it forever and just trying to make sense of everything, we can't always do that, and it drives us kind of crazy, right? Um, so is this making sense? Like, it's okay to let yourself just be okay, like whatever you need to do in that moment, and think about that when you're not having one of those moments. Maybe this week, after this call, at some point, think about what are some of those things that are okay for me to do when I'm in a moment of duress, when I just, what are some things that I need to be okay with just checking out with? Um, Kind of like when you have to calm down, like the calm boxes, or having the kids watch a show for 15, 30 minutes while you calm down, right? Having some things in your toolbox that say, it's okay if I need to just check out and do this right now, or take this off my plate. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, so I want to transition. I saw your post and I wanted to talk about this today. We're gonna end up talking about it next week too. I have a feeling. Well, I know we're going to. The podcast that I had you listen to, you were like, mind blown. I know, right? It's like, what's so interesting about that podcast is I read it and I have discovered all of these things, and I've known these things for a long time, but the way he said it was just so good. He laid it out so well. And I still haven't actually researched to see if there's a video on YouTube or something, because he's obviously doing a teaching with, he was drawing, like you could hear him. Um, so I would like to try to find that. But the point is, he laid it out really well. And what were some things that stood out to you?
Oh gosh. Well, I definitely, I guess, understood or related more to the second podcast. The first one was really deep and like getting into like the nuts and bolts of how your mind works and all that. So that one was really intense and hard to concentrate on and like really understand. Um I guess probably the main thing that I liked or when he said in the second podcast about how you have to like basically like your conscious mind has to overrule your subconscious mind, and you have to like literally believe that, and you talk about this, but he kind of went even more into depth about like whatever you are seeking, like you have to it reminded me of visualization. Like you have to visualize what you want. And so like I kept thinking of like basketball players. You know, I think they go through like visualization exercises where they're actually visualizing that they're making their 3-point shots or their free point shots. And they visualize that, you know, like 30 times a day, and then they actually go and practice it. So when he was just saying like you have to like visualize yourself, and he was saying like you need to be in that calm, relaxed, still state about like, you know, he described like when you're laying in bed right when you wake up and you're trying to decide if you want to get up or not, and like how you're just completely relaxed, and that you have to visualize like whatever you're seeking is like you're there, you're it. So that just, you know, you're basically like manifesting your destiny. And he didn't use the word visualize. I can't remember the word he used, but I kept just going back to that and just thinking of like a sports player or a golfer or something like that, like visualizing hitting the ball. You know, because that's what they say that successful
Yeah.
Olympians and sports players do, is they visualize that daily, probably in repetition, and then go out and actually practice and do it. So that probably is what stood out to me the most.
Do you remember in the very beginning, I asked you to, oh, and you may have just gone back through this a little bit, to visualize what you want life to look like as a healthy, feeling healthy in your motherhood journey. And each trigger tracker, the end, saying, what do you want this to look like in the future? Like next time you work through this, what are the results you want to see next time? It's that. It's absolutely that. It's setting yourself up for this expectation of what you can live up to and what you can create in your life. And when you think about going back, like what I love about all the stuff that we are, like what he laid out, what I've been teaching you guys, is it's literally that ability that God gave us to create.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I remember growing up thinking, well, okay, so I'm created in God image. That must mean that God has eyes and ears and nose, and I look like God. Like he must look like this. I don't know that that's all that it meant, right? When I was just yesterday when I was spending time with God and I was journaling and stuff, it, like a light bulb went off. God, we all have a mind, body, and soul, right? When you think of God, who's the mind? God. Who's the body? Christ. Who's the soul? The spirit, right? The Holy Spirit. It just was like, oh, whoa. Not that we know for sure or not that our Father God doesn't have a physical form, but it's just like an interesting dynamic to think he created us in his image. We have a mind, body, and soul, and we have the ability to create. One of the things that he says in that podcast, and he's got some other podcasts that I'm currently going through because I really want to understand this idea. I really want to wrap my brain around it because I love what it says. Something speaks to me when he says it. Imagination creates order out of chaos. What did that say to you, Randy?
Yeah, that was a cool statement. It made sense. Like it just when he was talking about imagination, like I definitely was thinking about my kids and like when they imagine, you know, whatever they're playing with and they come up with this whole idea and like so kind of in simplistic terms, like, you know, Caden has these ideas about when he's playing what he wants to see his Lego city become or what I mean, he just literally has blocks and like his imagination creates whatever he has in his mind, you know, and it turns into a whole farm and, you know, barns and fences out of blocks. And so it just shows that like I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like there was probably all these chaotic thoughts in his mind, but like through his imagination, he was able to take something and create it to exactly what he visualized it to be. And so it made sense.
Yeah, it does. And I love how, because I've been thinking, it was just crazy. It's one of those moments, you know, another God moment where this is stuff I've been nerding out on and thinking about a lot in the last few months, and you all have been hearing about it from me. But I was saying, and I think I've said it on here before I ever heard this podcast, that God gave us the ability to create, and imagination wasn't just some silly daydream tool. Imagination is the ability to think about what we want and how to create that. And every single thing that we see started as a thought. This smart pencil that Apple created, somebody thought, how can we make a pencil that works on the iPad? It had to become a pencil, just a pencil. Somebody had to think of creating a pencil. The iPhone, this earring. I mean, everything that you're looking at started as a thought in somebody's head, right? That's creation, that's imagination. And the part that my brain stumbles on that I'm like, how do I wrap my head around this is like, how is there chaos? What was the chaos that God like ordered out of chaos? You know, like I'm just getting too deep there. I'm like, what chaos did God have to create? You know what I mean? Like order out of. I'm going too deep there. But I guess for me personally, order out of chaos is imagining how do I make life better for myself, for my family, right? Um, when when we feel like things are overwhelming and we're struggling and we're not getting better or we're frustrated and we're stuck in one of those moments, to sit down and think about what would have to happen to make things better here. What do I need to create in my life? What do I need to be grateful for in my life to get me from point A to point B? And so I loved that. And I do believe that those of us who've felt negative, those people who are still stuck in negative mindsets, really have lost that idea that imagination is this beautiful tool that God's given us. And we lose that in childhood, saying, that's just something we use to daydream. Like, that's just something kids use to create pictures. And it's it's not. It's something that it's this fun thing that we've gotten from God to use as the drawing board in our mind. And what's even more crazy is to think about the fact that we existed before we existed because we were in his mind, right? Like we've always existed in him. It's just he started it all. He manifested it with his words. So that's where the power of I am an amazing mom creates an amazing result in your life with your kids and your husband and your family. You're deep in thought. You look deep in thought.
No, I agree with you. Like, I think when you're in that state of like overwhelm and stress and feeling not good enough or negativity, like that is the chaos. And so when you start to imagine or visualize or speak into existence those I am statements, or visualize like, okay, how can I make this better? And, what's something I can do to make this better or get out of this mindset? Like, that's when you start to imagine and it creates that order.
The verse here in James, it says, it's James 4, so let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. And then going back down to, there's a faith piece here. Or it's verse 3 right before it. For when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. What is believing the positive? It's literally saying, I have faith in God. I have faith that He has created an amazing human being within me. I am an amazing person, and I get to walk in faith that I get to live that out. And that's what He wants us to do. There's no other way to give God glory than to praise Him with how you live and thank Him with how you live and who you believe you are, right? He created this incredible playground for us, and my coach gave me this metaphor. She's like, He created this awesome playground for us, and He wants us to play, and He wants us to enjoy who we are, and yet instead of thanking Him by enjoying it, we tell Him, thank you so much for all of your hard work. Now I'm going to do something to, I'm trying to put this in the right perspective. She says, like, if you were to create this awesome backyard for your kids, cool playground and pool and all of this stuff, and you get to, you're so excited for your kids to play in it, and then you get your kids and you're like, surprise, there's your backyard, go play in it. And your kids look at it and they're like, oh my goodness, thank you so much, that's so cool, we love you so much, and well, we're gonna go clean the house to thank you. And you're standing there like, no, I made this for you to play, I want to enjoy watching you play. And you're like, they're like, no, but we need to go do something to say thank you. And God's like, just appreciate and enjoy what I've given you. You don't have to work yourself into a frenzy. You need to enjoy what I've given you and thank me for it. That's gratitude. Just be thankful. That's telling me all I need. That's all. Is that making sense? It was a really cool analogy, and it's just like, we think we have to feel bad and think in the negative and not be proud of who we are, because that would be boasting, and it's totally different perspective. It's not boasting. It's interesting because I'm doing an I Am Amazing Mom challenge on Instagram, and literally no one is taking part. And I don't feel bad like, oh, I'm not a good enough Instagram person, I'm not getting followers or anything. That's not in my mind. What breaks my heart is knowing that people are too afraid to say that they're an amazing mom because they're afraid that people are going to look at them and think they're boasting, that they're being proud, that they can't actually believe that they are amazing. And that's what breaks my heart. I'm like, oh, say it, believe it, act out. You will follow in those beliefs. You will start acting up, and you will see that, like I've told other people, maybe even you, that my life has not gotten any less chaotic. as my kids have gotten older and as I've grown older and worked through so much of this, my life has probably gotten more chaotic because of the business that I have now, right? But my life doesn't overwhelm me. I love my life. My kids still fight. My kids still don't listen. There's things that I have to repeat myself 20 times for them to listen. I still get frustrated, but I don't look at it in a respect of I'm not good enough, right? It's just a totally different mindset shift. So, yeah, anyways, it's just, we could just nerd out on this all day.
I know.
But I want to ask you, how are you doing? Is there something you want to be coached on? And I'm just realizing I didn't get back to you on Friday either about what you sent me. Obviously, I checked out last week.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
So tell me what's going on for you.
We had a good week. Caden's behavior seemed to improve. He was having a lot of difficulty at school, some challenges at school. And we kind of talked through those the weekend before. And so he actually took it upon himself to ask the teacher to move him and to go sit next to her. I guess she has like a single desk by her desk. And he asked, or at least from what we understand from him, he asked if he could sit at that seat and get removed from his table. So he did that on his own. And so obviously his discipline in there has improved because, or his behavior has improved, because he's not tempted by any other kids. I had a pretty emotional.
Wait, I gotta stop there.
Yeah.
So your son took it upon himself to take himself out of a tempting situation and move so he could focus on what he needed to focus on. Right.
Yeah. Wow. And we did. We praised him. We've praised him multiple times since then. We praised him the day he told us. I think we praised him again since then. And then we had our family meeting last night. And one of the topics is like recognition or, something that went right last week or something like that. So, we praised him again about how mature that was and how huge that was, that he took it upon himself to do that. And Caden, he's done that before. Like, I mean, when he's in the right mindset, like, I mean, he does big things like that. Like that just, that takes a lot for a kid to do that. So,
oh yeah. Did you
yeah.
talk to his teacher about it yet?
No, we did decide to have him meet with the counselor at school. So I contacted her last Tuesday, and I think this happened on Wednesday. So I'm not sure if she had a little hand in it. Like she might have suggested to him, like, hey, maybe you should ask Miss Beecham if you could move seats if you think that's a problem for you. Maybe she kind of put that in his ear. I'm not sure. I haven't spoken with her yet, nor have I spoken with the teacher. So he did meet with the counselor last Wednesday for the first time. And we had decided that I wouldn't even tell him that she was going to grab him out of class, because sometimes that she says that makes them like worried and nervous, which, I can understand that. Like we were already talking to him about like him getting notes sent home, and he knew his behavior at school wasn't good. So I think this kind of would have added another level, like, oh gosh, what are they doing? Like, why are they making me talk to her? But she comes into their classroom, maybe she's come in once or twice and kind of done classroom work with them. And so she pulled him out on Wednesday, and she said that she was just going to kind of start building a relationship with him and get to know him and kind of build that trust with him and become like a friend to him before they get into any work. And she's mainly looking to teach him kind of some strategies for his misbehavior and anger, so that, like if he's feeling angry about something at home or school, I think she's going to start with like trying to teach him to take deep breaths, like 3 deep breaths. And then she's going to send him home for the week and have him work on that strategy for a week. And then when she sees him the next week, ask him if it helps. And if it helps, then she's going to say, okay, we'll stick with that. If it's working. If it's not, she's going to give him another strategy.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so they met, and I said, well, I'm not even going to bring it up. I'm just going to see if he mentions it. And the minute he got in the car, he mentioned it and said that Miss Pfeffer had taken him out of class. And I was like, oh, really? Like, what was that about? And he was like, oh, she just wanted to know how many brothers and sisters I had and what grades they were in, and, like how I'm feeling. And he was so excited about it. Oh, he loved it. You could tell. Well, I mean, he's just my power kid, and he's an attention seeker. So I could just tell he was relishing in the fact that somebody was giving him undivided attention and like wanting to know about him. And so, yeah, it
That's
went
so
really well.
cool. I just want to take a second and tell you though, I want to pat you on the back because there's so much that you've worked on to help you be able to get to the point to work through this with her and him, and to encourage him in a positive way. Like, he knows, whether he knows it consciously or subconsciously, he knows mom's made a shift, right? And even though there's still challenges that happen, you're different. You're different than you were when we started working together. Okay. So you've helped increase his self-confidence just by what you've worked through. Because when you make those shifts, you can't help but give more confidence to your kids because you're treating them differently. You're talking to them differently. You're working through things differently. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And what's really cool too is the stuff that she's going to have him work through. You've worked through a lot of that yourself. And so you are a good sounding board. You're a good, like, he's not coming home like, oh, she told me to do this. And you're like, well, what does that even mean? Or why does he have to do that? You understand. Oh, 3 deep breaths. Well, yeah, that's helping him reset and calm down. And you get it, right? So, and don't be afraid if he opens up and talks to you about anything with the anger or anything, like, don't be afraid to open up back to him and be like, oh yeah, I totally worked through that this summer. I get it. Like, relate to him. That's only going to help him feel better about himself and feel more encouraged. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can be like, do you want to know what I've learned to help me work through that? You don't have to say, do it this way, or you should. Just ask him, hey, do you want to know what I learned to help me when in a circumstance like that? And you can, even though you've probably been doing it with him, pointing it out and be like, oh, this is what I've learned to help me work through some of this, and so I'm just like excited. That's so cool.
Yeah. So
good work, Mama.
Oh, thank you. And then I had my call with Elisa, I guess on Tuesday or so. And it was just Elisa and I, to talk about the miscarriages and how to it was funny because going into the call, I was like, I don't even know what I am wanting out of this call.
Before you go on, just want to ask you, I can stop recording if I've got the time, so we can keep working if you want to keep talking, but we can stop recording right now. Nobody else is joining today. So
that's probably a good idea.
Okay.